Hi everyone, my name's Anna Fagan. I'm a Doctor of Archaeology and Anthropology. I received my PhD from Melbourne University about 10 years ago and slowly wormed my way out of the academic space and I think I got a little bit disenchanted perhaps. And now I work exclusively for Aboriginal corporations. So that's really a wonderful place to be working in, and that's kind of what I wanted to speak to today, was the place for anthropology within an Aboriginal corporation. Disclaimer, I do work as a consultant, but a consultant that goes to Aboriginal corporations, helps them set up their operational processes, systems, their governance frameworks. I work towards a position of redundancy so that my job is done when I've built capacity that I'm no longer needed. So that's really my role and position in that. At the moment I'm doing some wonderful work with Carrick Aboriginal Corporation, and many thanks to Gwen and Abby for being here in the audience today. And thank you, Durham, for the invitation to speak on this panel. I think there's a lot of work to do in building up processes, best practice processes within corporations from the inside. And because you have this really rare opportunity to take both the bottom up and top down approach. You can build clear, strong processes, negotiate rigorous agreements that are founded on good anthropological question asking and a more holistic approach to environmental and cultural heritage management. You've really got a great relationship with the community and a better understanding of maybe a more holistic view of the environment. We do multi-species ethnography and ontology, and I think that really forms a much more grounded understanding of landscape and land use throughout deep time. I think they can also really do a great job at infusing better benefits and better protection for Aboriginal cultural heritage within agreements and agreement negotiation. The other part of that is really building a self-sustaining business model for Aboriginal corporations. And obviously with the governance framework, that's a huge important part, but having the tools and funds and resourcing to actually be sustainable 1 year down the track, 10 years down the track, as the demands on you for heritage assessments and other matters only exceed. One part of the ACHA development was that there was no financial modelling done. They were able to put forward figures for how much people should charge for 60,000 years of cultural knowledge, but not necessarily the direct labour, the overheads, all those other figures that go into just simply running a heritage service within an Aboriginal corporation. And so that's what we've been working on for the last 8 months at Carrick Aboriginal Corporation, is actually doing that necessary financial modelling to go back to the government and say, look, here's the data, this is how much it costs to do this work, when unfortunately perhaps government parties and government departments aren't actually doing the labour that's required of them, and a lot of that is put onto Aboriginal corporations to do that job. Sorry, let me go back to my notes, get back on track. I think also doing anthropology in Aboriginal corporations is very much a space where anthropology is tested. It's tested in the immediacy of the work, meetings, the consultation forums, mentoring, direct mentoring, day in, day out, working on country through cultural heritage site management, protection, and a lot of that is sadly much more reactive than it is protective, and we're doing a lot of work with our agreements at the moment to try and mitigate any of the literal fire putting out stuff, and that's where we were 2 weeks ago. We were literally about to put out a fire that was about to hit a very, very, very ancient and important Aboriginal cultural heritage site in the southwest. And that could have been prevented, and it could have been prevented through best practice consultation. That consultation failed to occur between DBCA, DPLH and the emergency services in the Shire, simply because they didn't think that Aboriginal people would need to be consulted on the bushfire management plan. I think as anthropologists we speak all the time about free, prior, informed consent, but what does free, prior, informed consent look like when it's operationalised? And that's the unique experience you have working as an anthropologist within an Aboriginal corporation, is that you can operationalise that. You can actually say, how does seeking consent with the necessary time, labour, cultural protocols, what does that look like within this corporation? That's some really important work that we're doing. It's also flipping the balance of power. It's giving people, through agreement making, agreement negotiation, policy, legislation and advocacy, that real decision-making authority, so that they're the ones that are making the decisions over their land use and about their heritage values. and they're having those necessary consultations with the tools and resources and time with external stakeholders being government departments, industry, consultants. Similarly, conducting a heritage survey alone is not necessarily consultation. So how else can we do? What levels of consultation do we need to do? Going back to the positive contributions of anthropology in the sector, I think we're very good at facilitating really nuanced dialogue. I think those critical skills we offer. We obviously have good experience in intangible cultural heritage, cultural values. I think that strengthens our positions in agreement negotiation and drafting policy and articulating potential indirect impacts to country, not necessarily just direct. I think we can play a really good advisory role. So what are the challenges? Challenges working within the Aboriginal corporation sector, potentially for students or new people coming in, lack of experience, unpreparedness, maybe not prepared for the ethical and relational demands of working in this space, but also the operational and administrative realities. A lot of the work that I do is not very sexy. It's data entry, it's record keeping, it's filing, it's admin. I mean, that's not really what I got into the space of anthropology for, but it's where I'm at because, I think at the end of the day, it's autoethnography that should be leading the charge, and if I can do the legwork in the background, awesome. I think there's also the need to balance academic and technical rigor with accessibility and relevance to the community. I think there may be a misalignment between community expectations and people's personal academic priorities, and that can really lead to tensions. There's also the unseen labour. It's hard when you're there keeping the cogs turning and keeping the engine running, and people never see the disasters that you avoided. It's also what has been spoken about today, the significantly lower salaries and the remote locations that make it really difficult to attract and retain high quality personnel. I think there is also, for opportunities, is really testing our current heritage system and really bringing back the control over heritage surveys and the design of heritage surveys back to the corporation and the people. And essentially we can look at, say, co-designing of scopes of work so that we're not really just doing a compliance model, but say we twin an environmental survey, a heritage survey looking at waterways values. We then have environmental experts on the ground, we have anthropologists, and we're essentially getting two jobs done at once, which I'm sure proponents would like because that cuts down on expenses. That you're going to have a much more informed cultural landscape-based approach rather than this sort of discrete atomistic approach to bounded sites and really reductive sort of parameters for doing the ethnography. Regarding mentoring programs, I think there would be a lot of value for partnership between Aboriginal corporations, universities and professional bodies. That's to provide on-the-ground experience through internships and secondments to Aboriginal corporations. Also to do that data entry record keeping stuff. There's so much stuff that needs to be digitised and archived, and if anyone just wants to get their toes and fingers into it for a few months in an Aboriginal corporation, people would be very thankful. I think having university partnerships will really better ensure as well that academic programs align with and prioritise the Aboriginal corporation sector need. So what's the future? I think we really have to play a support role in operationalising self-determination and free, prior and informed consent. I think we need to assist in creating transparent systems and building internal capacity to ensure that traditional owners don't have to rely on necessarily all the time on external experts. I think there's a lot of weight in data sovereignty, having Indigenous ownership and control over cultural data, policy and governance, and ensuring ICIP is stored, shared or not shared, and utilised according to those community protocols. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in licensing arrangements for ICIP, rather than giving a company a free, forever, royalty-free, eternal use of your language word. You say, you know what, you can rent this. You can do a subscription, you can rent it month by month, and if maybe not going to be a good corporate citizen, we're going to revoke that. More discussions about how people can revoke their consent if they need to. Let's talk about water rights and advocacy. Advocacy for legislation and policy reforms that centre Aboriginal ontology, priorities, rights, lobbying government to undertake genuine financial modelling and resourcing of corporations so that they're not set up for fail.